Yeah! Welcome back to our podcast today here on Island Life. I'm your host, Leilani No, and we are partnering with the Bahamas National Trust this week theme because I am the conch. You have to love the marketing team. But today in studio, I was supposed to have on our show a BNT conservationist, and COVID isn't gonna stop no show. So we have on the line with us today our marine specialist, Miss Taylor. Taylor's the head of the BNT Marine Program that ensures that all of our marine life regulations are in place and that we, the public, adhere to the rules. So welcome to our show, Taylor. It is so good to have you here today.
Thank you for having me on your show, Leilani. I love coming on your show.
So I love all things conch. I love this theme. And just so our audience knows, this podcast is being shared live on our BNT for Discovery and Guardian groups all across the different schools. So Taylor, I love to eat conch. So just enlighten me and tell me some things about the conch.
So you want to know all about the Alligator or more recently known as the Labatus gigas. It is originally known as the Strombus gigas, but commonly known as the Queen Conch. It has a lot of names. So the species, which is a large edible sea snail, is a marine gastropod mollusk in the family of true conchs. The Strombidae basically is a yummy baked sea snail.
Talk about yummy. I never think about what I'm eating and what they might have eaten because I'm way up high on this food chain. So tell me all about what the conch eats and who are some of the conch's predators.
So conchs are actually herbivores. They eat a lot of algae and other tiny marine plants.
So that means they eat a lot of like salad. So I'm good on that part, right?
The conch's main predator includes turtles, sharks, blue crabs, eagle rays, spiny lobsters, and other crustaceans. And get this, even other snail species.
What? Other snails eating snails? No way. And I love conch fritters. I love conch salads. And you always hear about people saying, don't pick up a young conch. Tell me a little bit how long it takes for a conch to go from baby to full grown. Tell us about the appearance, and then you can tell us all about the life cycle.
It is a nice colored pink on the inside of the shell, but the orange and tan on the outside of the conch. As the conch ages, their shell becomes thicker. Male and female conchs copulate to reproduce. For the male conch, the verge is a reproductive organ, and the female conch has a genital groove that runs down the side of its foot, and mating can produce hundreds or even thousands of individuals. Female conchs lay hundreds of thousands of tiny eggs in sandy egg masses. The larvae emerge after 5 days and may drift out the ocean currents for up to a month before settling in suitable habitat on the ocean seafloor. During the first year, conchs live under the sand during the day and come out to feed on the surface of the sand at night.
So that sounds like vampire conch.
Also, it may take a queen conch literally at least 5 years to reach maturity at this stage in life. They have a very hard frail lip that can reproduce. So the queen conch lives an average of 7 years, but some are known to have lived as long as 20 to 30 years.
That's insane, a 20 to 30-year-old conch. So tell me a little bit about the parts of a conch. We see the meat and we see the shell. What is all about it? What's there to a conch?
Firstly, we have the shell. It's a pale brown color on the outside with a beautiful rosy pink lip. Then you have the outer body covering of the conch, which produces the shell, and this is called the mantle. The conch produces its shell by taking calcium and carbonate ions from seawater. Next, we have the foot. This is a muscular proportion of the conch used for locomotion and is edible. Also, you have the operculum. Sorry, this is a very hard word to pronounce. The operculum. This hard sickle-shaped structure at the tip of the foot is also used for locomotion. The conch's characteristic hopping motion is referred to as conch crawl or strumpet lead. Then we have the long, flexible, extensible snout called the proboscis. In its tip is a long structure called the radula, which is used for scraping algae off seagrass blades as it feeds. Can't move around if you can't see, right? The conch has 2 eye stalks that extend from either side of the base of the proboscis. At the tips of their eyes, just before the eye, is small sensory tentacle which detects scent.
Okay, so seeing, tasting, all that jazz. Now, when I go diving, I hardly ever see conchs. I always see starfish. I see a bunch of shells. Where would I have to go to see conchs when I go swimming or diving?
Yeah, unless you're in the shallow area, you won't. Conchs tend to live in shallow, warm waters on coral reefs or seagrass beds.
You know, I love conch. I don't know how many times I've said that. I love conch meat. I have conch jewelry. And even though that you can find the conch in like different Caribbean islands, especially in Florida, I feel like the conch is Bahamian and we love it. Tell me, why do you think the conch is so important to the Bahamas?
Yes, the conch is a Bahamian treasure and so important to the Bahamian culture. It has been used for centuries for food, decoration, jewelry, bait for fishing, and even used as a musical instrument, also known as the conch horn. This conch is a well-loved delicacy, like you said, enjoyed in a variety of ways, including fritters, salad, grilled, stewed, or crack. Conch is an important part of the shallow water ecosystems of the Bahamas. It is also a part of the livelihoods of fishermen, vendors, restaurant owners, seafood wholesalers. As fishery resource, conch contributes over $5 million to the economy annually.
Wow, that's big.
It is. So that's why we need to conserve and preserve before there's no more.
So now I know. So our series is called conservations, or like my friends in the States like to say conch. And tell me what our entities like the Bahamas National Trust and the brief entities, what are they doing about preserving this conch species? And what about the regulations in the Bahamas?
Okay, so conchs are listed under Appendix 2 in the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, also known as CITES, which includes species that are not necessarily threatened with extinction, but may become so if trade is not tightly controlled. No harvesting, possession, or sale of conch without well-formed flaring lip. Non-commercial exports are limited to 10 pounds per person as personal baggage. No commercial export of conch or byproduct without a license issued by the minister responsible. Foreign sports fishermen with valid sport fishing permit are limited 10 conchs per person. So that's just a few of the regulations.
Yeah, so let's talk about more on conservation. You're a conservationist. You're making sure that, we don't have any more endangered species. So what are some of the effects that we're seeing right now with this?
Okay, so this is a big thing for us at BNT, and along with brief, in the Bahamas, the conch is heavily fished and is in danger of daily being overfished. Our conch population is decreasing because of the commercial value of vendors and persons wanting conch. So there are a lot of numbers of issues we face with our friends, the conch. Firstly, there's over-harvesting. Fishermen and poachers are harvesting conch at the rate so much faster than they can be replenished by reproduction. So they're picking up juveniles that should be maturing to reproduce to create more. But obviously that's not happening.
And I feel that we should know that. Like, we know we're not supposed to pick up small conch, but it's still happening. Why do you think that is?
They are slow moving and therefore easy to catch. They're also slow growing because it takes over 4 years to become mature and reproduce. In addition to that, there's loss of habitat. Due to human activity, such as sea construction, dredging, dumping, we are losing these habitats, and that will have a big impact on the conch fishery. So this impact of the life cycle. Oh, then there is enforcement. Our government does not do a great job at enforcing penalties for poachers and fishermen that come out of line. We have over 700 islands and keys, and yes, it is hard to police our waters 24/7. But because of this, we are losing a huge stock of this lovely marine animal. Then there is a public misconceptions. Many people believe that the size of the conch shell indicates that it's mature. Surveys have shown that the density of the queen conch is increased. That this may be due for fishers selecting a larger size of conch for harvest, leaving the smaller ones behind. Smaller conch also produce less offspring than larger ones, contributing further to population declines.
So what do you think needs to happen now so that we don't have a future conch problem?
In order to safeguard the conch, we must be proactive. This involves taking action to manage our conch populations while we still have a viable fishery. This means now, before they are depleted. So we need more enforcement and also to bring awareness to the public and fishermen population so that we all do our part in ensuring we don't have another endangered species on our hands.
So one last thing before we go. Tell me one more thing that I do not know about the conch.
Let me think. Conchs are produced natural pearls that come in a range of hues, including white, brown, orange, and pink. People think only clams do that. Conchs are kind of awesome too.
Well, I definitely learned a lot today. Taylor, Mrs. B&T Specialist, thank you so much for taking your time to come out to our show today. I cannot wait to have you back again for another